Trust is not a gift, it is a weapon. In the hands of the disciplined, it is a tool for building empires, families, and legacies. But when you place it in the hands of the wrong man, it turns against you with surgical precision. It does not always strike with a loud explosion or a dramatic confrontation. More often, it strikes through the quiet accumulation of consequences, silent, precise, and unavoidable. Most men navigate the world with a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. They speak about loyalty as if it were an emotion, a fleeting feeling experienced in the warmth of a good meal or the high of a shared victory. They treat it as something felt in the moment, promised after a period of comfort, familiarity, and shared convenience. But true loyalty has never been about words, and it has certainly never been about feelings. It has always been about choices. It is about the gatekeeping of your inner sanctum. It is about who you allow close enough to hear your heartbeat, and who is permitted to see your back when you turn away to face the world. Most men fail this test long before they even realize a test is being administered. They confuse proximity with trust. They confuse the length of time they have known someone with the solidity of that person's character. This illusion has buried more legacies and dismantled more fortunes than open conflict ever did. The anatomy of the weak man. Weak men perform loyalty only until loyalty demands a cost. This is the fundamental law of the unrefined character. A weak man is not necessarily evil in the cinematic sense. He is simply unfinished. He lacks the internal scaffolding to support the weight of a true commitment when the environment turns hostile. These men speak the loudest about loyalty. They are the first to toast your health at a crowded table. They swear allegiance under bright lights, surrounded by witnesses, where the social reward for appearing loyal is high. They perform for the room. But when the room empties, when the lights dim, and when the cold wind of external pressure enters the equation, they vanish. This disappearance is rarely a grand exit. It is a slow digital erosion. Calls go unanswered. Text messages are missed. Excuses begin to multiply like a virus, each one slightly more elaborate than the last. The story is eventually rewritten in their own minds until their failure sounds reasonable, even justified. They convince themselves that they didn't leave you. They simply prioritize their own well-being. Most men allow this to happen because the alternative is too painful to face. They do not want to admit they were wrong. They choose the comfort of the illusion over the jagged edge of the truth. They protect their own pride by protecting the weak man's mask. The signal in the silence. Reality, however, is indifferent to your pride. If you trusted the wrong man, you will pay the price. You pay not only with his absence in your hour of need, but with the total sum of everything you invested in him. Your time, your access, your private information, your social standing, and your hard-earned respect. When you trust the wrong man, you do not merely lose an ally. You lose ground that may take years to reclaim. What most men fail to understand is that misplaced trust is a public signal. The world is watching. Other men of higher caliber, are observing who you keep close, who you defend, and what level of mediocrity you tolerate in your circle. When they see you surrounded by weak, inconsistent men, they do not pull you aside to correct you. They simply adjust their judgment of you in silence. They move away. They stop offering the high-level opportunities. They withdraw their respect so quietly that you don't even notice it's gone, until you find yourself alone in a room full of people who can do nothing for you. Loyalty is not just a private contract. It is a declaration of your standards. Every person you protect reveals the flaw of your character. Men who survive the long game understand this intuitively. This is why they test before they trust. They do not grant access freely. They do not open the vault for anyone who can mirror their smile. They observe. They wait. They apply controlled pressure to see how a man's frame holds up under load. The mechanics of the test. Controlled pressure. How does a man of substance determine who belongs in the vault? He does not ask questions. He observes reactions. Testing is the only way to separate the performative from the permanent. 1. The test of the small secret. You share something small, not a life-altering secret, but a piece of information that is valuable enough to be tempting to share. It is a tagged piece of data. Then you watch. Does he guard it? Does he treat it with the same sanctity he would his own reputation? Or does it travel? If that information reaches a third party, you have your answer. He has failed the first gate. He is a sieve, and you cannot pour your future into a vessel that leaks. 2. The test of absence. You watch how he represents you when there is no reward for doing so. A truly loyal man is your most fierce defender when you are not in the room to hear it. He corrects the narrative. He shuts down the gossip. He protects your name as if it were his own because he understands that your reputations are linked. A weak man, however, will remain silent. Or worse, he will bridge the conversation, nodding along with your detractors to keep himself in their good graces. He uses your absence to buy social currency for himself. 3. The test of removal. This is the most revealing test. You deliberately reduce access. You stop the flow of favors, time, and attention. You pull back the proximity. A solid man remains unchanged. His character is not a transaction, so the reduction of a benefit does not change his behavior. But a weak man will react. He will grow anxious. He will perform louder, or he will grow resentful. He will attempt to reclaim what was never truly his to begin with. His loyalty was never about you. It was a subscription service to the value you provided. When the subscription is cancelled, the service stops. The fire and the flame. The final test is the pressure of real cost. This is not manufactured by you, it is manufactured by life. It is a situation where standing beside you demands a genuine sacrifice, perhaps a sacrifice of his own status, a loss of comfort, or a risk to his own safety. Loyalty is never tested in the sunshine. It is tested in the fire. Most men fail before the flame even touches their skin. They see the smoke on the horizon, and they are already calculating their exit strategy. They are already looking for a new, strong man to latch onto. This is the nature of the parasite. If you find that weak men are constantly gathering around you, you must stop looking at them and start looking at the mirror. Weak men do not approach strong, disciplined men by accident. They sense tolerance. They sense a lack of boundaries. They sense a man whose standards are negotiable. Strategic men, men with a spine of steel, do not tolerate weakness in their inner circle. This is not out of a desire to be cruel. It is out of a necessity for clarity. They understand that a weak man inside the vault is a liability that no amount of charm or friendship can justify. The path of strategic solitude. When the weak man finally reveals his nature, the common man reacts with shock. He feels betrayed. But the man who understands the laws of the dark is never surprised. He knows that weakness does not betray. It simply behaves according to its design. The failure was not the weak man's inability to be strong. The failure was your permission for him to be there. You ignored the red flags. You chose the comfort of his company over the clarity of your intuition. You did this because seeing the truth would have required you to take action. It would have required you to cut. And cutting is painful. Cutting requires you to stand alone for a time. Strategic solitude is not a punishment. It is a form of higher-tier protection. It is the necessary vacuum that must exist between releasing what is broken and allowing what is solid to appear. Men who understand this do not fear the silence of being alone. They know that alone is infinitely better than contaminated. They know that alone is better than carrying the dead weight of a man who will trip them during the sprint. Rare men, the 1% who truly understand the meaning of a blood oath, do not appear while your life is cluttered with the performative and the inconsistent. They only appear after the space is cleared. They recognize your standards through your actions, not your words. They see the restricted access. They see the enforcement of your boundaries. Rare men recognize other rare men through the patterns of their lives. The final law of reality. Ask yourself the only question that matters. Look at the men currently in your circle. How many are truly solid? How many would you trust with your life, your children, or your legacy? How many stayed when the cost of staying was higher than the cost of leaving? If the answer is none, then you are not an unlucky person. You are an undisciplined one. You have failed to apply the standards that a man of substance must enforce. You must internalize this law. You do not have the men you deserve. You have the men you tolerate. What you tolerate becomes the atmospheric pressure of your life. If you tolerate inconsistency, your reality will be unstable. If you tolerate performative loyalty, your reality will be a house of cards. Trust is the most valuable currency you will ever possess. It is more valuable than capital, more valuable than time, and more valuable than talent. Trust is the foundation upon which everything else is built. Misplaced trust is the wrecking ball that destroys it. Money can be made again, time can be managed, but lost respect, a compromised position, and the stain of association with weak men do not restore easily. They leave scars on your reputation that can be seen from a distance. The choice is yours, and it is a simple one. You must guard your trust as if your entire future depends on it, because it does. You test before you grant access. You observe the shadow before you trust the light. You apply the pressure yourself before you let life apply it for you. And when a man fails when he shows you that his core is hollow, you do not negotiate. You do not give a second chance to a character defect. You remove the access. You do it quietly. You do it precisely. You do it without the indulgence of emotion. Loyalty is a binary state. A man either has it in his DNA or he does not. Attempting to forge loyalty in a weak man is a waste of the one resource you can never recover, your life. Stay close to the truth. There are more laws in the dark for those who have the eyes to see them. Silence protects the disciplined. The shadows recognize the rare. Trust is not a gift, it is a weapon.